John D. Rockefeller, the leader who fueled America with a lasting legacy. By Evan Puckett, Ian Kaufman, Owen Kennedy, and Liam Toomey.
John D. Rockefeller was a leader and entrepreneur by starting one of the world's largest oil companies, and he monopolized it. His historical significance and legacy is that he was one of the first major leaders in the oil industry, donated large quantities of his money to humanitarian and other charitable causes, and he provided the nation with a reliable fuel source.
General facts. John D. Rockefeller was born on July 9, 1839, in Richford, New York. Rockefeller created the Standard Oil Company and monopolized nearly every aspect of the oil industry. Therefore, he created many positions in fields such as labor, architecture, and engineering.
He had a major career in philanthropy, supported many foundations, and promoted equal education for everyone. Charities received many donations of large amounts of money from Rockefeller because he was deeply concerned in public well-being. Rockefeller died on May 23, 1937, in Ormond Beach, Florida.
Childhood. In Rockefeller's youth, his father was a quote-unquote doctor who claimed he could cure cancer. His mother was a devout Baptist and a strict woman. Rockefeller was the second of 6 children. In school, he was able to solve arithmetic problems in his head, he was on the debating team, and he excelled in math. He was a good public speaker since he went to public speaking school, and that would be very useful to Rockefeller in his later years. At age 12, he had saved over $50 from raising turkeys.
Early business career. In August 1855, Rockefeller began looking for a job as a bookkeeper in Cleveland. Throughout his search, he accepted the job of assistant bookkeeper at Hewlett & Tuttle. On March 1, 1859, he went into business for himself and forming a partnership with his neighbor, Maurice Clark. And the starting of this, both investing $2,000, creating Clark and Rockefeller. They were commissioned merchants in grain, hay, meats, and miscellaneous goods. By 1868, Rockefeller continued the exercise of borrowing and reinvesting profits, which controlled cost and usage of refineries' waste. The firm owned 2 Cleveland refineries and a marketing subsidiary in New York. Rockefeller, Andrews, and Flagler was the ancestor of the Standard Oil Company. They grossed $450,000 in the first year of trading. Clark did the field work while Rockefeller controlled office management, bookkeeping, and relationships with bankers.
Standard Oil.
This clip emphasizes the far-reaching and immense power of Rockefeller and Standard Oil.
During 1865, Rockefeller borrowed some money to buy out his partners and take control of the refinery. For the next few years, he acquired new partners and expanded his business interests. In 1870, Rockefeller, his brother William, and Henry Flagler incorporated the Standard Oil Company of Ohio. Rockefeller was the president and the largest shareholder of the company. Standard Oil held 10% of the business at its formation. Also, it produced 29,000 barrels of crude oil per day. In 1892, all of its properties were merged in the Standard Oil Trust. It had an initial capital of $70 million. There were originally 42 certificate holders in the trust. The companies that made up the trust later joined in the formation of the Standard Oil Company of New Jersey. New Jersey had adopted a law that permitted a parent company to own the stock of other companies. Standard Oil owned 3/4 of the petroleum business in the U.S. during 1890.
Monopoly. By 1879, Rockefeller was refining 90% of American oil, and Standard Oil used its own tank car fleet, ships, docking facilities, barrel-making plants, depots, and warehouses. In 1882, Rockefeller's companies formed the Standard Oil Trust, which would control 90% of the nation's refineries and pipelines. By 1883, after winning control of the pipeline industry, Standard Oil's monopoly was at its peak. At its peak, Standard Oil consisted of 20,000 domestic wells, 4,000 miles of pipeline, 5,000 tank cars, and more than 100,000 employees. 9 trustees of the Standard Oil Trust received the stock of 40 businesses and gave the various shareholders trust certificates in return. The trust had a worth of about $70 million, making it the world's largest and richest industrial organization. In the 1880s, the nature of Rockefeller's business began to change. He moved beyond oil refining into producing crude oil itself and moved his wells westward with the new fields opening up. Standard Oil also entered foreign markets in Europe, Asia, and Latin America. In 1885, a committee system of management was developed to control Standard Oil's enormous empire. Rockefeller is known for buying up all of the components needed for the making of oil barrels in order to stop his competitors from getting their product on the market. The giant Standard Oil was able to withstand short-term losses by cutting the price of oil. Smaller competitors could not keep up and either went out of business or were bought out by Rockefeller. Standard Oil cut the cost of a barrel of oil from about $3 to $1.50. Rockefeller was able to demand a refund on public rates offered by the railroads. The carriers agreed to this because of the company's immense volume. Rockefeller created the Standard Oil Trust. A trust is a combination of firms by a legal agreement. It reduces fair business competition. Through the trust, Rockefeller turned Standard Oil into the largest oil company in America. Also, with the advent of the automobile, oil replaced kerosene as the #1 petroleum product. Standard Oil gained a monopoly by buying out rival refineries and developing companies for distributing and marketing their products around the globe. In 1904, the company served 80% of the American towns. They established a system of pipelines to transport their products. Rockefeller turned to new transportation methods, including the railroad and tank car. Rockefeller built high-quality, better-planned refineries. They built permanent facilities using the best materials. Standard Oil owned their own white oak timber and drying facilities and bought their own hoop iron. The Sherman Antitrust Act, which was founded in 1890, was the major cause for Standard Oil to separate. Philanthropy and legacy.
Rockefeller, from his first employment as a clerk, sought to give away 1/10 of his earnings to charity. His donations grew with his fortune, and he also gave time and energy to philanthropic causes. At first, he depended on the Baptist Church for advice. The church wanted its own university, and in 1892, the University of Chicago opened. This university was Rockefeller's first major philanthropic creation, and he gave it over $80 million during his lifetime. Rockefeller chose New York City for his Rockefeller Institute of Medical Research, now known as Rockefeller University, which was chartered in 1901. From its laboratories have come cures for diseases as well as new knowledge and scientific techniques which have helped to revolutionize medicine, biology, biochemistry, biophysics, and other scientific disciplines. The total of Rockefeller's lifetime philanthropies has been estimated at about $500 million. Eventually, the amounts involved became so huge, his fortune reached $900 million in 1913, that he developed a staff of specialists to help him. Out of this came the Rockefeller Foundation, chartered in 1913 to quote-unquote promote the well-being of mankind throughout the world. The Rockefeller Sanitary Commission eradicated hookworm and created vaccines for yellow fever and meningitis. A few of the achievements of its scientists included the creation of the serum for the treatment of spinal meningitis and pneumonia. Rockefeller created the first proper medical school in China and created public health schools at Johns Hopkins and Harvard. In 1902, he established the General Education Board, which helped promote education in the South without the distinction of race. During its active years between 1902 and 1965, the General Education Board distributed $325 million for the improvement of education at all levels, with emphasis upon higher education, including medical schools.
When I came into the oil industry, there was chaos. I brought order. I took a second-rate, inefficient market and built an industry. It was done the way it was because that's the way it had to be done. No one complained when I brought light into every home. No one complained when I provided thousands of jobs or millions of dollars from exports. Oil is what this country runs on. You call it monopoly. I call it enterprise.